Hey everybody, the Super Bowl is done. Season's over. Wash it. We're ready for the offseason. There's some Nick Chubb news, but we're going to be focusing on the upcoming draft, the combine, post-Senior Bowl. Who are the prospects the Browns need to be focusing on? That's coming up right now on the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
In the backfield, Latavius Murray. Huntley takes the shotgun snap. Back to pass. Looks. The ball got stripped away. In the air. The Browns fight for the ball. And it's picked up by Myles Garrett. He's going to score. Touchdown.
It's going to be sick.
Hey everybody, hope everybody is doing great. Browns fans, okay, we're ready to move forward. It's off-season time. We're going to be having free agency soon, the owners' meetings. There's going to be the combine. We're coming out of the Senior Bowl. It gets busy real quick. Fine by me. I'm ready to put all that, all the postseason awards and all that. That's great. That's done, okay? Coming up in a few minutes, Billy Mansel from IDP Guys is going to join me. He was actually at the Senior Bowl, so I want to dive in with him. Who are the players that the Browns can look at? Because the Senior Bowl is such a good spot to look for those second round and down type of players, right? Which is, of course, the Browns once again do not have a first round pick. So we need to find those gems. We need Andrew Berry to hit on some of these guys and look at positions of need. Wide receiver, maybe a pass rusher. Okay. Is there anybody else? We'll be looking at the linebacker core as well. And we'll get into that with Billy in a few minutes. Make sure you click subscribe, notification bell on, leave comments, follow us on Twitter, X at SickPodBrowns, myself at AndyMC81, and on Instagram at AndyMCSports. So do that, subscribe. Lots of great offseason content coming up for you. But I wanted to address, before I brought Billy on, the Nick Chubb article put out by The Athletic earlier on Tuesday, and essentially a good piece, but what it did is it caused a little uproar in the Browns fandom, in the dog pound of, well, does this mean the Browns are going to cut Nick Chubb? Does this mean they're going to let him go? It was just a piece really outlining the contract situation of Nick Chubb and what could, and in most cases should, happen with a player at his position, at his age, with the injury. But by no means does it say that the Browns are going to get rid of Nick Chubb. Andrew Berry specifically sat up there. And look, this is an analytics guy. We know that. We know Andrew Berry, Mr. Analytics, right? And for most players, if you look at a 28-year-old quarterback after a second horrific knee injury, with this amount of salary coming up, in a lot of cases, in most teams, if it's not a special player, you cut him. We have seen great running backs. Todd Gurley comes to mind. Other players who just, if you're a running back, you just get dinged. That's it. You move on. But there's some times when you have a special player. Not every team has that type of special player. Not every team has one in a decade. The Browns got one in Nick Chubb. They know it. We as fans know it. Nick Chubb isn't going anywhere. Okay? We know what he meant to that locker room. And think of it this way, too. They'll have to restructure this contract. And good news, Browns fans. We have the eggheads, the Ivy League, the best of the best when it comes to salary cap management. It's what arguably the front office does best. So we'll see a restructuring as long as Nick Chubb's side is willing to play ball, which by all accounts in the past they have been. I suppose anything can happen. If they stand their ground and say, no, we want it as is, well, now we have a problem. But as long as they're reasonable, I can easily see something where Nick Chubb will get an upfront signing bonus for a restructured contract, heavy front loaded, add on a year, whatever, and make it work. Because think of it this way too. If you're the Browns from now a player perspective, you got by and did well with a combination of Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, and Pierre Strong. We're going to get to later round running backs too to replace Kareem Hunt. I'd have Kareem Hunt back, but I think it's doubtful that he will, based again on his age and price. So you can go through that committee, hopefully with Deshaun Watson healthy and playing well, and then whenever Nick Chubb comes back. Now, it looks like it's going to be sometime during the season, right? Not the start. Is sometime October? Is it November? Whenever it is, you're going to get back, presumably, a healthy Nick Chubb, even if he's not as explosive off the top, even if he's not as Nick Chubb averaging 6 yards per carry. If you get Nick Chubb back on the field, let's say for fun, beginning of November, you have the committee aspect that hopefully has been working well with the freshness of Nick Chubb. Maybe he takes on the Kareem Hunt role of punching it in from the goal line. Think of the morale boost. You get a fresh star player in name back on your team when injuries can ravage you. I think it's a great setup for success for both sides. So hopefully that helps put any angst Browns fans were having for Nick Chubb being let go. Andrew Berry said Nick Chubb's last play is not going to be that play in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Not going to happen. And until he gives me a reason not to believe him, I'm going to believe him. I'm going to believe him. Let me know what you think, though. Should Nick Chubb stay or go? And more importantly, do you think he will be cut or if he'll be back? I'm telling you, he's going to be back. All right. Make sure you get us on Twitter at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Instagram and TikTok at AndyMCSports. Click subscribe. Let me know in the comments section. Now, Nick Chubb will be back at some point, but who will the new Browns be coming in? So I want to bring in my guy from IDP Guys, Billy Mansel, who was at the Senior Bowl and is going to be covering the Combine as well and getting ready to really look at who is the option at different position groups for the Browns. At linebacker, running back, to help replace Nick Chubb, whatever it might be. Who are those guys? And we'll bring on Billy. Had a little camera issue there, I think, for a moment. There he is. Hey, Billy, how you doing, bud?
How's it going? It's great to be here.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I noticed in the background a Baker Mayfield Rams jersey.
Yes, I have Oklahoma because that's my favorite team. My favorite team is Oklahoma Sooners, college football. But I fell in love with him when he was there. And so I've been following his whole career. I have the Browns, I have the Panthers, Buccaneers, and I have the Rams. And wherever else he goes in the future, I'll probably buy a jersey too. I thought after the Panthers I was done, but the Rams, that one drive against the Raiders, that was cool. Stole my heart all over again. I had to get another one. So
fell in love all over again. Maybe one day, Billy, maybe a gold jacket up on the wall too. Who knows?
If he ever sells merch for Hall of Fame, I'll buy that too. So
I got the Baker Mayfield Funko in the backdrop there too. So hey, a Baker fan is a friend of mine on this show. I'll tell you that.
For sure.
All right, buddy. So you were at the Senior Bowl, and that's one of my favorite events leading up to the Combine because, especially in recent years, Billy, we've seen stars come out of the Senior Bowl. This isn't just the throwaway at the 7th round pick. Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen was there, Dak Prescott, right? Like these are spots where we pay attention as the first step to the draft and really on the road to the Combine. So just in general, before we get to Brown specific, I want to get your guy who maybe helped his draft stock the most coming out of that Combine.
We're going to bring this player back up in a minute, so I'm going to not talk about him a whole lot, but it was Roman Wilson from Michigan. They had a run first heavy system there, so just able to see Roman Wilson actually in a pass heavy atmosphere because they actually got to, throw the ball downfield and see what he could do. His speed, his athletic traits, he was just bananas down there. So Roman Wilson was my biggest riser as far as a wide receiver goes. Probably one of the best players of the entire week. Other players that kind of impressed me a little bit was Ricky Parasol from Florida. He played his first year at Florida with Anthony Richardson, and he was kind of all over the place throwing the ball. So we didn't really get to see him 100% how we thought. So having him this year, he did make probably the best catch of all of college football this past season. Trust me, look it up after this podcast. You will not be disappointed with that one. And he had just an amazing week. He's able to make these catches that is just insane. And for a 6'3", probably not quite 200-pound guy, it was very impressive. And I was quite happy with what I saw from him.
I like that size, 6'3" in size. That's what the Browns are going to be needing. We'll swing back to the wide receivers. Now, there's also hype guys who come in and maybe didn't play as well. Did anybody maybe hurt their draft stock a little bit?
I'm just the position group as a whole, quarterbacks. I would love to have seen more. Now, Michael Penix, I will give him, was easily the best one there. This is my third year going. We have not had great quarterbacks the last couple of years. Kenny Pickett was the only first rounder in the last two that I went to, and I was shocked when he went in the first round that year because I didn't think he played that well through that entire week. So having Penix down there kind of made me think like, okay, this guy's going in the first round. He's the best one I've seen. But as a whole, like Joe Milton from Tennessee didn't really love him. Spencer Rattler's getting a lot of buzz, and while I do think he is a good developmental pick, where if you pick him behind somebody where you don't plan on him going in right away, sure, that he did raise his stock in that one, but he's not a starter. And even Bo Nix, who a lot of people were kind of hoping after this would be a first rounder, I still think he might be teetering on that edge closer to probably a second rounder where he could come in and win a game in next year and nobody would be surprised. But he's not as surefire, I think, as some people thought of, like coming in and maybe even being a starter next season. I just didn't see that.
Yeah, there seems to be, maybe more so than in recent memory, of these quarterbacks with a lot of name recognition coming out of college, like the Spencer Rattlers, the Bo Nix, where if you think of it in the college sense, like, oh man, they're stars. But as we know, there's that transition that doesn't always happen. So that's interesting to say that. We'll see how they progress through the combine process here, in conversation with Billy Mansel from IDP Guys on Twitter, X at Hom Brevender. You can get him there. Now, Billy, let's look at the Browns' specific needs, because we don't have a first round pick again due to the Deshaun Watson deal. We start in the second round, third, fourth, and actually, I don't think we have a fourth. I think we have 3 and 5s and stuff. But in any case, let's begin with those wide receiver groups, because this is the area where, again, with that big salary cap number for Deshaun Watson, the Browns are going to have to make some concessions. Is it Amari Cooper leaving and another free agent or trade coming in? Is it him staying and you having to build up through a rookie? We had Cedric Tillman, who I like, but we look at this Browns depth chart: Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and David Bell. Really, I'm looking for kind of the guys you mentioned, like that kind of the big fast. We need kind of that guy who could grow into an alpha.
Yeah, and I think it starts with Rowan Wilson. Now, I will not lie to you. The combine, he might bump up a bit and maybe very back into the first round, which if that happens, that's kind of worst case scenario, because he is just absolutely perfect for what the Browns would be looking for in a potential alpha wide receiver. Because like I said, and this is no shot at JJ McCarthy, because I don't think it was his fault, but Roman Wilson really did never get to show what he could actually be and actually do in that offense that was so run heavy. I mean, in the championship game, JJ McCarthy completed 10 passes. How can a wide receiver possibly show what they could do when he's not even getting a chance to complete some of the passes? So I do think Rowan Wilson would be but the combine could possibly scare me, and because he might boost his stock up. A couple other guys I was looking at was Tez Walker. He is coming from North Carolina. He played with Drake May. He played with Sam Howell. I actually think that he could be an alpha. He was at the Senior Bowl as well. There was a couple of bad drops that he had, but when you're down in the Senior Bowl, you're getting used to playing with new guys that you've never had thrown the ball to. Sure. You're supposed to show all of this in a couple of days. So I didn't really hold that completely against him, because I do think he could be a good possession receiver. And I definitely think he's going to be in the second round. I don't really see him getting into the first. So the second round would be where I find him. I mentioned Ricky Parasol. I think he's more of a third round guy if you all don't get him in the second round or choose to go a different direction. And then lastly was Jalen Polk from Washington. Because of what Rome Odunze did there, and he's obviously a first round, top 5 probably wide receiver, Jalen Polk kind of fell a little bit to the undercard, which he is definitely not an undercard wide receiver. He is definitely a guy who at the next level could end up being, potentially more popular than Rome Odunze put in the right offense. And that is a kind of guy that if the Browns snagged him in the second or third round, he could grow into being that alpha wide receiver. And you'll wonder, why was he not Rome Odunze at Washington after it's all said and done?
What's his size like? What are his measurements? Is he a bigger guy? Or?
He's kind of a 6'1", 200-pound guy. So, I mean, it's not, a lot small. Of people are like, oh, he's not short. Like he's not tall. So he's not going to be, no, but he was very good. He's very good at tracking the ball downfield. He's definitely a guy that can get the home run ball. And I think he will be able to mesh into any offense He made Michael Penix into what he is today. A lot of people are like, oh, Michael Penix made these three guys. Well, I don't know. I actually think maybe these guys just helped. I think it was a homogenous thing. I think they both helped each other.
Actually, I think those are some great options there. That's what we're looking for, right? Guys who might drop in extra backup plans if somebody does get bumped up into the first round. So, okay, that's wide receiver. Let's stick with the offense and the running back spot. And I mentioned it off the top. I think Nick Chubb later in the year, however he looks coming back, could probably serve at least initially as that short yardage goal line, punch it in type. But this is where you have Jerome Ford, you got Pierre Strong, you probably have another veteran, a later round running back here, Billy, that might be maybe just kind of that bulldozer type. Just like, I don't need him catching the ball. I need a wrecking ball who's powerful. I don't need the home run. Just boom, bust through.
Okay, well, I kind of put my dream scenarios in order of like how high they're going to go versus the lowest one. The highest one is Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. He is probably going to go in the third or fourth round, so that's kind of like reaching a little bit for a Browns pick when you don't necessarily need that. But that would just be an absolute dream. He is just the latest in the long run of Wisconsin running backs that's going to come out and surprise the league. Actually, I think the Browns are quite lucky this year. The running back pool, not a lot of top end guys. There's not a lot of. I don't even think there's going to be a second rounder. If so, it's going to be late. So there's a lot of good running backs you're going to be able to get a little bit later than normal. The two fits that I really like for the Browns, especially with where you'll be picking, is Marshawn Lloyd. He's from USC. I actually got a chance to talk to Marshawn Lloyd at the Senior Bowl. He kind of models his game after Josh Jacobs, but with like the quickness of DeAndre Swift. And that just immediately made me perk up because I'm like, wow, okay, if you think you can be that. But he is quite the bulldozer. He's got the size. I believe he's 6 foot 205, I believe is what he weighed in down there. And so, I mean, that would be perfect. The last two I have, one's Cody Schrader from Mizzou. He's kind of a smaller guy, maybe like 5'8", 5'9", but he's definitely a bulldozer. He got a ton of touchdowns at Mizzou. He is a pass catching back as well. He says he kind of wants to be Christian McCaffrey, but I don't really think he profiles that way. I know that's the dream.
I'll take him.
Wants to be that. Exactly. I know everybody wants to be that, but he's kind of like the lesser version of that. I don't know if that's going to work out, that one. And then the last one, you're probably going to get this for free at the end of the draft if you want it, and that's Frank Gore Jr. Namesake alone probably gets a lot of people perked up, but he's not quite as good as his dad. But he is a guy exactly what you're looking for. Goal line back, can hit a home run ball if necessary. I know Kareem Hunt has done that in the past, but he's just good at getting that short yardage situation and a guy that you could probably fit in right away with what you're looking for there.
Isn't that wild? Frank Gore, like he's been around so long now. His son is like, what?
It's insane. I can't believe it. Yeah, I don't want to think about it, but yeah,
no,
that's crazy.
That's why I like those running back options there. And someone, especially if it's deep, we see running backs drop all the time in general these days, right? So that could be some nice value with one of those 5th round picks maybe or something like that. Let's swing to the defensive side of the ball as we chat with Billy Mansel from IDP Guys, who was at the Senior Bowl covering the draft, the combine. So pass rusher, because we have some questions here. Of course, we got Myles Garrett, the defensive player of the year. Sorry, TJ Watt. Still cry over that, you little punk. Zadarius Smith may or may not be back. That's why we have to wait until free agency. Maybe he's back on a 1-year deal. Maybe he's not. However, it might look. You have nice pieces like Alex Ray, who came on strong at the end. You still have Isaiah McGuire, who you drafted last year. I like Lonnie Phelps. I hope they develop him. I really like Lonnie Phelps. But as far as a rotate, we know the Jim Schwartz defense. He likes rotations. He likes fresh bodies. So any pass rushers that caught your eye?
And I'm glad you mentioned rotation because I handpicked one out just for you, and that's Braylon Trice from Washington. Washington kind of used a similar system where they rotated a lot of guys in. There is so the edge rusher class this year is kind of strange. Depending on who you ask, there's a lot of first-round edge rushers, but I just don't see it working out that way. I see a lot of these guys probably going to drop and then end up in the 2nd and 3rd round. So Braylon Trice would be the guy that I would be going for there. He was a rotational piece, but he was able to get, as soon as he got injected into the offense or defense, he was able to make impact plays right away. That would be the main guy. The other guy I would bring up is Chris Braswell from Alabama. I do believe because he had Dallas Turner on the other side, Dallas Turner will be a first-round edge rusher. But because he was the other guy in the defense, I think that he's going to drop just because a lot of people are going to be focused on that. But he was all as good. It's like pick your poison kind of thing. It just happens to be that, Dallas Turner got more of the sacks, but he was definitely just as impactful. Just maybe not, the numbers don't jump off the page as much as they did with Dallas Turner.
So he's someone who could drop a little bit potentially.
I think so. I think he's probably in the third round right now. I don't know how he would get up higher than that, but I think he's a guy that you could snag early day 2 or day 3, maybe even. So where you would be happy with that as a potential starter at some point.
Well, that'd be, if we could get one of the wide receivers you mentioned in the second round, swing back and get him in the third, that'd be pretty good.
I think you walk away happy with that. I honestly do.
You walk away pretty good. And one last spot here, the linebacker position. Now, JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, really developed stud, future chess piece, centerpiece of this linebacker core. But we know in the Jim Schwartz and defense, and really the Browns' mindset under Andrew Berry has not been to value the linebacker position highly, much to the chagrin of some Browns fans. So it's more of you're going to draft or sign one-year guys. You got Anthony Walker who can't stay healthy. Jacob Phillips can't stay healthy. Sione Taki's been nice. I hope they bring him back. But it's a spot where you might have 2 on the field, and you're going to look to develop the next JOK. JOK fell, and now look at what they've been able to develop him. So someone who, I'm not spending a high piece, but someone with some upside.
For sure. Well, I brought 2. I brought one that if you wanted to pay up a little bit more premium, who you're really going to love, and then I brought one guy that you're going to get in the later rounds. The guy I would love to see in this defense is Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State. I did get a chance to talk with him at the Senior Bowl as well. He is just a good old country boy. I asked him what kind of music does he like to listen to pump up. He says he doesn't use it, doesn't need it, doesn't want anything about that, and he is just tough as nails. He is a guy that is trying to be like Luke Kuechly. And that should make everybody excited who likes linebackers. Yeah. And that's the kind of guy he wants to be. He did have a couple injuries, which I think is what's going to potentially drop him down, a couple of shoulder injuries. But if the Browns want to pay up just a little bit, it is probably going to be a 3rd or 4th rounder. I know they don't have one 4th rounder potentially, but if they wanted to pay up a little bit, that is a guy that you could potentially have for 5 to 10, maybe even 15 years if he stays healthy. So a guy that you're going to want to have on your side. And then my later guy is Tyrone Hopper from Mizzou. Mizzou had a very, very good defense this year, which I don't think a lot of people know because they were in a lot of shootouts. But Tyrone Hopper, who was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl and opted out due to an ankle injury, should be fine to go with the combine next week. He is a guy who is very fast and very moving. And I think in the vein of JOK, if they got him in there, and I think that he's a guy they could develop into that, you're probably going to get him in the 6th or 7th round. At this point. So I think that he would be a guy I would go with.
Right. And we've seen Andrew Berry outside of JOK, really take shots on like a Tony Fields and stuff like that later in the draft. So, those are a couple of good options. I love it. Sure. Now we're in draft season. Now we're getting ready free agency. And of course, all the pieces and needs will move for all the teams, but phenomenal. Billy, tell people where they can find you, your great work with IDP guys and all that.
For sure. Well, follow me at Ombre Vendor. I'm going to be talking about the draft a lot. Believe me, all of my thoughts are going to be on there. And also follow my podcast. It's called At Offensive Points. And it says on the offensive points, but we talk about both offense and defense on the show. It's a podcast. We talk about draft. We talk about fantasy football. We talk about just about anything. Trying to get people ready for the fantasy football season, but we also really just dive deep into the draft, and we'll be doing a lot of draft content coming up here.
Absolutely love it. Billy, thank you so much, brother. Let's do it again soon.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
All right, there he goes. Billy Mansel from IDP guys, and you heard where you can find him right there. I like these options, guys. I like these options for the Browns with these later round picks that Billy laid out. I'm going to go through and do some deeper dive on them and some similar pieces leading into the combine, but there are some choices that Andrew Berry can make here that you're going to have to, with the salary cap issues, you're not going to be able to go outside a whole bunch of top tier free agents who quite often don't pan out anyway. You pay more. So you're going to have to do it through the draft. And hit and miss, right? Some work, some don't. But there's some good options that Billy laid out there. Let me know who you want the Browns to take in the draft. Is there any player specifically you're like, they got to get that guy? They got to get that guy. Tell me. Let me know. Leave it in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter, X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Twitter or Instagram and TikTok, at AndyMCSports. And let's get ready for the combine. We'll come back next week. We'll talk some combine. We'll get ready for free agency. Busy, interesting, and important offseason for the Cleveland Browns. So click the notification, subscribe. We always love that. Until next time, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.